Hello, everyone. Today, I would like to speak about closing the segregated unit and migrating towards a truly inclusive education. A new family with 3 kids was enrolled recently. Twins Jojo and Luca are both year 4 aged. Although Luca has been placed in our separate unit because of the slight intellectual impairment and type 1 diabetes. Now, I think it's a time to question whether we share the same principles with Australia as regard the issue of inclusive education. Australia experienced different stages, which includes the exclusion, where disabled students in Australia would not get an education, the special schools where the disabled students were separated, and finally the integration in 1980s to 90s, where the disabled students were physically present yet separated. Integration put the pressure of adaptation on the students, which presupposed that they should be prepared to be mainstream. The actual inclusion would change the system to embrace every learner right at the beginning. The commitment of Australia is entrenched in several frameworks. In 2008, we signed the UN Convention on the Rights of the Persons with Disabilities, in which Article 24 provides the right to inclusive education without discrimination. The Disability Standard Education 2005 nationally asks schools to offer education on the same basis that students without disabilities do. This means the same opportunities and participation within the same space, but with personalized adjustment rather than identical treatment. The medical model puts disability in the individual as a loss to be managed as a defect, posing the question, what's wrong with this child? But the social model considers the disability is constructed by the environment and the structure, with the question, what barriers does our school construct? We are acting on the medical paradigm when we segregate Luca. The social model requires the practice to be altered and the barriers to be eliminated, rather than the students. This indicates the change perceptions of equality that considers all people in the same way to equity when they realize that offering people equity demands differentiation depending on their needs. Why shut down the segregated unit? It concerns social justice and human rights. The disability standards for education are quite clear since education must be made available on equal terms as that of peers. By putting Luca into a separate unit, we are depriving him of its right. Segregated unit also reproduce what we call othering, or that is treated as student out of the norm, basically by being treated as different. This othering is an act of ableism, which is discrimination based on ability. By supposing that Luca cannot learn with his brother and other students because he is intellectually impaired, we assume that he cannot learn that and he has no potential. Denying Luca the opportunity to join a general education class is gatekeeping. Establishing obstacles to students with disabilities receiving a general education, usually claims of resource limitations or student competence. The standard make it straight that students do not need to demonstrate their readiness to be included in the classroom. Inclusion is their right from the start. Salamanca's statement specifically mentions regular schools which are oriented towards inclusiveness to be the best method of fighting against discriminatory moves. And ableism becomes part of our practice as we suppose separation is superior in the case of students with disabilities. Othering occurs in languages that is normal and special needs children, as well as physical separation. Whenever we divide Luca, we put forward a message that he does not fit with the rest of the people. Luca would receive an age-based Year 4 curriculum in an inclusive classroom rather than a watered-down curriculum. It is always indicated that intellectually disabled students taught in the integrated schools perform better in academics, have improved communication abilities and optimistic expectations about their future life. He would make friends and with his classmates, including his twin brother Giorgio. These peer ties are important in social growth and emotional health. Identity and belonging are other findings influenced by inclusion. In a segmented environment, students think they are not good enough to associate with the rest. This has impact on self-esteem and self-concept that are long-lasting. Luca should be made to feel that he's a part of our school, a prized part. Inclusion is good for all the members of our school community. Being a classmate to the rest of the students in the classroom, Luca can provide them with empathy, diversity appreciation, and social skills, which they cannot teach in a textbook. In the case of teachers, having students with various learning needs help us to be better pedagogues. By knowing how to differentiate successfully in the case of Luca, we will also be excellent teachers to all students, since all students will gain advantages in terms of clear instructions, visual aids, and various instructional strategies. Luca's family, as far as the twins are put together in ordinary classrooms, they're having the same experience in school, which is also significant to the family structure and how Jojo will associate with his brother. And for our school, it shows that we are a diverse community that has valued equity and social justice when it comes to the way we live. And I would like to discuss the case needs of Luca and the reason he should be enrolled in mainstream classroom. Luca is mildly intellectually impaired, meaning that he will process information more slowly than his peers and might require assistance when doing more difficult tasks. However, the fact is that the mild intellectual impairment does not imply that Luca cannot learn. It implies that he doesn't learn in a similar manner and at a similar speed. With the support and proper adjustment, Luca will be able to pursue the same curriculum as his buddies. Students with mild intellectual impairment can frequently be good visual learners, and concrete hands-on experience of learning is what we should be offering to all students at any rate. And Luca also has type 1 diabetes, and he needs the level of blood glucose and insulin administration to be checked. Yet diabetes is a health disorder that requires some treatment, but it has little negative impact on the learning abilities of Luca. Having an adequate health management plan, Luca will be able to engage fully in all classroom, in all school activities, such as checking his blood sugar level or having a snack. It's an easy adjustment we can make, and that doesn't mean he cannot engage in learning with his fellow learners. Now we talk about differentiation strategies. We will consider the key framework, universal design of learner. What structures our instruction at the beginning in line with the need of diverse learners? Instead of developing a one-size-fits-all lesson and then attempting to adapt it to students with disabilities. UDL offers various access to representation, to action and expression, and engagement. In the case of Luca, some evidence-based approaches would be applying visual aids, such as visual schedules and graphic organizers, concrete materials and hands-on learning experiences, and ensure that he's given time to think it over thoroughly before responding to instructions. Instead of giving instructions and tasks in complex multi-phases arrangements, we will divide them into several small steps. These are modifications that enable Luca to go through the curriculum without expectations being reduced. Peer support and collaborative learning will also be utilized, which can help students with disabilities better and help their classmates gain leadership skills. There are also some issues that I would like to discuss. Some parents will consider that the needs of Luca would dominate the continued needs of other children. To begin with, there is no normal child. Every learner of our classes possesses special needs, abilities, interests, and challenges. It has been demonstrated that the inclusion of students with disabilities doesn't hurt the academic performance of their peers. By applying the best practice such as UDL, every student will benefit. The learning is facilitated by the strategies that will favor Luca, visual aids, clear instructions, hands-on learning, hence accessible learning to anyone. And we're not setting expectations down, we're giving accommodations to ensure that Luca can reach the expectations that we have, as in the case of all students with different needs. So where do we go from here? It requires a comprehensive professional growth, consensus in the planning time, and a step-by-step transitioning process involving the family. Australia has engaged in promises of inclusive education. So we should have Luca in regular classes where he fits. We shall honor our duty of delivering inclusive education and demonstrate that we do care about equity and needs of every child. Thank you for listening.